The sanctuary exploded into chaos before anyone understood why. Pastor Emmanuel Vance staggered mid-sentence, eyes rolling white, his microphone shrieking with feedback as he ripped it from the stand and screamed into the crowd, "An arrow of death is flying over this house. Somebody is going to die before midnight if I don't pray right now." 300 people surged to their feet. Women wailed. Men dropped to their knees in the aisles. Children were yanked up and shoved toward the altar like the building was on fire. Vance moved through them like a man possessed, palms slamming against forehead after forehead, his voice cracking as he commanded death to pass over, commanded blood to cover, commanded the devil to flee. Deaconess Patience Eshiot stood frozen near the third pew, her heart slamming against her ribs. Something cold moved through her stomach, not fear of dying, but fear of him. A silent voice she had no name for screamed one thing into her spirit: "Do not let that hand touch you." Vance was 3 feet away now. 2 feet. His palm rose toward her face. She stepped back. The room didn't gasp so much as it stopped. 300 people who had just been screaming and weeping went dead silent in half a second, all eyes swinging toward the one woman who had just dodged the pastor's hand. Vance's arm hung in the air, frozen, his face twisted between confusion and something else, something that looked, for one unmistakable heartbeat, like fear. Patience didn't move. She couldn't explain it, not even to herself. All she knew was that her body had refused before her mind had finished the thought. Then Vance blinked, lowered his hand, and smiled like nothing had happened. "The Spirit doesn't force himself on anyone," he said smoothly, already turning to the next person. "Sister Patience will receive in her own time." The congregation exhaled. The wailing resumed. But Patience stood rooted to the spot, watching the back of his head, unable to shake the look that had crossed his face. In the third row, her niece Abigail was staring at her too, not with fear, but with something worse. Disappointment. That night Patience sat alone in her kitchen, replaying it. 12 years she had been a member of Crown Point Chapel. 12 years of tithes, of testimonies, of crediting every contract she'd won and every property she'd bought to the power of Pastor Vance's prayers. She had walked into that church broke and walked out year after year, wealthier. She loved that church. She loved him. So why had her body betrayed her? She didn't sleep that night. When she finally drifted off near 3 a.m., she dreamed of a hand reaching for her forehead, except in the dream it wasn't a hand anymore. It was something long and dark, curling, and it struck instead of touched. She woke up screaming. By Sunday, the story had grown legs. A man named Brother Cyril stood at the front of the church and testified through tears that he had survived a head-on collision on the expressway, his car flipping 3 times, and walked away without a scratch, because Pastor Vance had prayed over him just 2 days before. The church erupted into thunderous praise. People wept. People shouted. People pointed, not unkindly, but pointedly, toward Patience as if to say, "See what you almost rejected." Elder Solomon visited her on Tuesday evening. He sat across from her in her own living room, hands folded, voice gentle. "Patience, I'm not here to condemn you," he said. "I'm here because I love you. What happened on Sunday, that's not pride. That's not stubbornness. That's spiritual blindness, and the enemy uses exactly that kind of blindness to destroy good people." "Solomon, I felt something," she said, "in my body. Before my mind even." "Feelings lie," he said, cutting her off, but kindly. "The word doesn't. And the word says don't despise the laying on of hands." She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him about the dream, about the thing that wasn't a hand. But looking at his face, sincere, worried, certain, she said nothing. 3 days later, Abigail finally spoke to her directly, after a week of cold silence. "Auntie, people are saying you've lost your faith," Abigail said, arms crossed, eyes red. "Is it true? Did something happen to you?" "Nothing happened to me, baby. You just refused the man who prayed over me when I was born. The man who prayed over Mommy before she passed. And now everyone is saying you don't believe anymore." Her voice cracked. "I don't even recognize you." Patience reached for her, but Abigail stepped back. "I have to go," she said, and left without another word. Alone again, Patience pressed her palms to her face and wept, not for herself, but for the widening gap between her and the one family member she had left in the world. The following Sunday, against every instinct screaming at her to stay home, she went back. She told herself she would prove she still had faith. She told herself she would let him pray for her this time, end the gossip, return to normal. Vance reached for her forehead during the altar call, his palm rising slow and certain. And then her eyes opened, not physically, but somewhere deeper, and for one suspended second, his hand was not a hand at all. It was a serpent, black and glistening, mouth open, striking toward her skull. She screamed and threw herself backward into the arms of the people behind her. The congregation gasped. Several screamed in sympathy, certain she was being delivered from a demon in real time. Ushers rushed forward. Vance stood with his arms still extended, and in the half-second before he composed himself, Patience saw it again, not anger on his face. Relief. As if some part of him had wanted her to refuse. As if some part of him needed her to. She didn't wait to find out what that meant. She pushed through the crowd, through the ushers, through the doors, and didn't stop walking until she reached her car, hands shaking too hard to fit the key into the ignition. If you've ever felt your gut scream a warning before your mind caught up, drop a comment below, because what happens to Patience next is about to get a lot more personal. Make sure you're subscribed, because this story only gets darker from here. That week, she submitted her formal letter of withdrawal from Crown Point Chapel. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Women who had called her sister for over a decade stopped returning her calls. A business partner pulled out of a property deal 2 days after the news spread, citing personal reasons that everyone understood meant something else. Her name, once spoken with respect in that congregation, was now spoken in hushed, pitying tones. Poor Patience, the enemy has her. Vance never called. Never visited. Instead, he sent people, first Elder Solomon again, then 2 other deaconesses, then a young associate pastor she barely knew, each one arriving with the same message wrapped in different words. Come back before it's too late. She refused every one of them. But Abigail's silence hurt worse than all of it combined. Her niece, the girl she had raised like a daughter since her sister's death, had chosen the church's story over her own blood. Patience lay awake some nights wondering if she had made a terrible, prideful mistake. If she had thrown away her family, her community, her decade of blessing, over a feeling she couldn't even explain. Then, on a Thursday night, 3 weeks after she left, there was a knock at her door at almost 11 at night. It wasn't Solomon. It wasn't Abigail. It was a woman Patience had never seen before in her life, elderly, small, wrapped in a faded shawl despite the warm night, with eyes that looked like they had been crying for 30 years and had simply run out of tears to show for it. My name is Beatrice, the woman said before Patience could even ask. And I need you to listen to me very carefully, because I waited 30 years to say this to someone, and I am not going to waste the courage it took to come here. Patience's hand tightened on the door frame. Who are you? Beatrice's eyes filled, finally, with the tears she'd apparently been saving. I am the first woman Emmanuel Vance ever did this to, she said. And you, my dear, are not going to be the last, unless you let me tell you everything I should have said 30 years ago. If this story already has your full attention, smash that like button right now, because what Mama Beatrice is about to reveal is the twist that changes everything you think you know about Pastor Vance. Patience stepped back and let the old woman inside, her hands trembling, every instinct telling her that whatever came next would change the rest of her life. Beatrice sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't trust herself to take up more space than that, her hands wrapped so tightly around each other that her knuckles had gone pale. Patience brought her a glass of water she didn't touch. 30 years ago, I was you, Beatrice said. Younger, of course. Foolish, maybe. I had nothing, a market stall, 3 children, a husband who had run off. And then Emmanuel Vance laid his hands on me one Sunday, and within a year I had a shop, then 2 shops, then a house. Everyone called it a miracle. I called it a miracle. What was it really? Patience asked, though some part of her already knew. A transaction, Beatrice said, and her voice cracked down the middle of the word. I didn't understand it then. I thought God was blessing me through him. It took years before I understood that something was being taken from me every time something was given. My peace first. Then my sleep. Then my own children started looking at me like I was a stranger in my own house. Patience's chest tightened. What did you lose? Everything that mattered and none of what I thought I was keeping, Beatrice said. My husband never came back, not because he left me, but because something made certain he never would. My eldest son died at 22, no explanation, healthy 1 week, gone the next. And when I finally tried to walk away from that church, the same way you just did, Emmanuel came to my house himself. Not an elder. Not a deaconess. He stood right where you're standing now and he begged me to come back. Why would he beg? Patience asked. If it's me losing everything, why does he need me to stay? Beatrice looked at her for a long moment before she answered. Because it isn't a gift he's giving you when he lays hands on you, Patience. It's a transfer. He needs a steady supply of people willing to receive it, or the thing he bargained with comes looking for payment directly from him instead. The room went cold despite the warm night outside. I said no to him 30 years ago, Beatrice continued. And because I said no, I have spent 30 years watching that church grow from the outside, terrified of what it cost everyone who stayed, and too ashamed of my own silence to warn another soul. Until I saw you dodge his hand on the news clip someone posted online. Until I heard you actually said it out loud in that sanctuary, in front of everyone. I knew I couldn't stay silent again. Patience's hands were shaking now. What happens to me? He will come for you himself, Beatrice said. Not Solomon. Not some associate pastor. He's never done that for me, not once in 30 years. But you, he will come for personally, because what you walked away with, he cannot afford to lose. What did I walk away with? Beatrice's eyes glistened. Your glory, child. Whatever portion of grace was meant for your life that he's been quietly skimming off for over a decade, you took it back the moment you refused him. And men like Emmanuel Vance do not let go of what they've already counted as theirs. She left a few minutes later, refusing a ride, refusing even to give an address where she could be reached. I said what I came to say, she told Patience at the door. What you do with it now is between you and God. Patience didn't sleep again that night. She sat with her Bible open on her lap until sunrise, not really reading, just needing the weight of it in her hands. 3 days later, her phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Abigail's roommate, voice frantic. Aunt Patience, you need to come. Abigail's burning up. She won't wake up properly. She's saying things that don't even make sense. Patience was in her car before the woman finished the sentence. She found Abigail thrashing under damp sheets, skin slick with fever, lips moving around words that weren't quite words. Patience knelt beside the bed and took her niece's burning hand. Abigail. Abigail, baby, it's me. Abigail's eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused, and for a moment she looked at her aunt like a stranger. Then her voice came out low, scraped, and entirely wrong for a 23-year-old girl. You can't keep what isn't yours. Patience's blood went to ice. Abigail? The girl blinked hard, and when she spoke again it was her own voice, thin and frightened. Auntie? What's happening to me? Why does my chest hurt so much? I'm here, Patience whispered, gathering her up despite the fever soaking through both their clothes. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever this is, we are going to fight it together. Do you hear me? Abigail clutched at her sleeve, tears slipping down into her hairline. I'm sorry I stopped talking to you. I'm so sorry, Auntie. I believed them over you. None of that matters right now. It does, Abigail whispered, because I think something followed me home from church. I keep dreaming about a hand, reaching for me, every night since you left. Patience held her niece tighter, her own tears finally falling, equal parts grief and fury rising in her chest. Whatever Vance had built his ministry on, whatever he'd bargained away years ago to get there, it had just reached into her family with both hands, and she was done being afraid of it. If you've ever had to choose between protecting someone you love and protecting yourself, comment below, because Patience is about to make a choice that will put her face to face with Pastor Vance one final time, and it's not going to go the way anyone expects. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because this is where everything comes to a head. 2 nights later, a car pulled up outside Patience's house just past 10. No entourage, no elders, no associate pastors sent ahead of him this time. Pastor Emmanuel Vance walked up to her door alone, and when she opened it, the man standing there looked nothing like the commanding figure who tore through his congregation laying hands on 300 people. His shoulders were sunken. His eyes were rimmed red, sleepless. "Patience," he said, voice hoarse. "Please. Just let me finish what I started. Let me pray over you properly, just once, and I swear to you this all ends." "Ends for who, Emmanuel?" she said, standing firm in her doorway. "For me or for you?" His jaw clenched. For a moment he said nothing, and in that silence she saw something she hadn't expected. Not rage, not cunning, but raw terror. "You don't understand what I'm carrying," he said finally. 30 years ago I was nothing. A boy preaching to empty chairs in a rented hall, no money, no name, watching men half as called as me build empires while I starved for the gospel. I was desperate, Patience. I made one decision. One. Thinking I could control it, thinking I would pay it back once I had enough to spare. I didn't know there is no such thing as enough. I didn't know it doesn't take payments. It takes people. Like Beatrice, Patience said quietly. His face went pale. "She came to you." "She did. And now I know exactly what your hand has been doing for 30 years, Emmanuel. I know what it almost did to my niece 3 nights ago." "I never touched Abigail," he said quickly. "You didn't have to," Patience snapped, her voice breaking with fury she'd been holding for weeks. "Whatever you bargained with reached into my house and put its hand on a 23-year-old girl's chest while she burned with fever, speaking in a voice that wasn't hers. So don't stand on my doorstep and tell me your hands are clean." Vance flinched like she'd struck him. "I never meant for it to go this far," he said, and his voice cracked completely now, the polished pulpit cadence gone, just a frightened man's voice left underneath it. The first bargain felt so small. A whisper in the dark, a promise, a handful of years of struggle traded for breakthrough. I told myself God would understand desperation. I told myself I'd find a way to undo it once the church was strong enough to stand without it. He looked at her, eyes wet. "I never found a way. There is no way. It only grows hungrier." For one long moment, Patience almost felt sorry for him, almost reached out, almost softened. But she thought of Abigail's burning skin, of Beatrice's 30 years of silence, of a congregation drowning in fear dressed up as faith, and she straightened her spine instead. "There might still be a way for you, Emmanuel," she said. "But it isn't through me. It's through confession and repentance, and tearing down whatever altar you built in secret, not through dragging more souls onto it to keep yourself fed a little longer." "I can't stop," he whispered. "I have tried. It doesn't let go." "Then I pray God has mercy on you," Patience said, "because I am done. Whatever glory you stole from me, I am taking it back tonight, in Jesus' name, and you will not lay a hand on me or anyone in my family again." He left without another word, walking back to his car like a man 20 years older than when he'd arrived. That night Patience dreamed harder than she ever had in her life, not the vague dread of weeks past, but a vivid, roaring battlefield of a dream, dark shapes lunging at her out of black fog, and her own voice, steady and unshaking, declaring scripture into the darkness until the shapes recoiled and scattered. She woke at dawn with her sheets soaked in sweat and a strange, settled peace in her chest she hadn't felt in over a month. Across town, in the pastor's grand house, the lights flickered without explanation at 3 a.m. A door slammed shut on its own. And the call came just after sunrise. Joel, Vance's only son, studying abroad, had died suddenly overnight. No accident, no illness anyone could name. Just gone, in his sleep, halfway across the world from a father who had spent 30 years feeding something that had finally, quietly, decided to start collecting in his own house. Crown Point Chapel held its biggest service in history that following Sunday. Louder music, more weeping, more testimonies, more hands laid on more foreheads than ever before, fear dressed up so convincingly as revival that newcomers flooded the doors. From the outside, the church had never looked more alive. But Patience wasn't there to see it. She was at her kitchen table with Abigail, both of them healthy, both of them whole, sharing a pot of tea and a silence that finally didn't ache. "Do you think he'll ever stop?" Abigail asked quietly. "I don't know," Patience admitted. "But I know I'm done being afraid of him. And I know what almost happened to you taught me something I'll never unlearn. Some hands offer blessing, and some hands offer a bill you won't see until years later." A week after that, Patience tried to find Mama Beatrice again, to thank her properly, to ask what came next. The address Beatrice had once mentioned in passing led to an empty lot. No neighbor remembered a woman by that name ever living there. It was as if she had appeared only long enough to pass her warning forward, finally free of 30 years of silence, and then simply ceased needing to exist in that story at all. Darkness always collects its payment, eventually. The only question that matters is who is left standing when it finally comes to collect. And Patience Eshiot, for the first time in over a decade, intended to be standing in nothing but the truth. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss the next one. And drop a comment below. Have you ever felt a warning in your spirit that you almost ignored? Tell me about it, because stories like Patience's are exactly why I make these videos. See you in the next one.